Hello, and welcome to Math Matters. I'm Ms. Ott, and today we are going to learn about parallel, intersecting, and perpendicular lines. You know that a line goes on and on in both directions and is marked with arrows at both ends. What is the same and different about these sets of lines? You might have noticed that the first two sets of lines cross each other, and the last set does not. When you can imagine that two lines can go on in both directions and never cross each other, they are called parallel lines. Look at these shapes. If you imagined that each of the line segments that make up these shapes were extended and went on in both directions, which lines would be parallel? If we imagined these sets of lines extending in both directions, we can see that they would never cross. They are parallel lines. Are there any other sets of parallel lines in these shapes? You might have thought about these sets of lines that are also parallel, or these sets of lines that would be parallel. The rectangular prism actually has many sets of lines that would be parallel. Where do you see parallel lines or line segments in these pictures? Look around the room you are in. Can you find parallel lines in your room? Here are a few examples of parallel lines you may have found in the pictures. Lines that cross each other at one point are called intersecting lines. The first two sets of lines are examples of intersecting lines. The second set of lines is a special case of intersecting lines called perpendicular lines. Lines that are perpendicular create right angles where the lines intersect. All the angles created by perpendicular lines are right angles. Look at these shapes. If you imagined that each of the line segments that make up these shapes were extended and went on in both directions, which sets of lines would be intersecting? If we imagined these sets of lines extending in both directions, we can see that they would cross at some point. These are intersecting lines. Can you find two sets of lines that would be perpendicular? These lines would create right angles at the point where they cross. They are examples of perpendicular lines. Where do you see intersecting or perpendicular lines or line segments in these pictures? Look around the room you are in. Can you find intersecting or perpendicular lines? Here are a few examples of intersecting or perpendicular lines you may have found in the pictures. Here's an activity you can do after the video. Draw all the capital letters in the alphabet on a piece of paper. They are all made of line segments and arcs or parts of circles. Take a look at the letters you drew. Which ones have parallel line segments? Which ones have intersecting line segments? And which ones have perpendicular line segments? Let's do one together. Do you see any parallel lines in the letter E? Yes, there are 3 parallel lines on the letter E. Do you see any intersecting lines on the letter E? Yes, there are 3 sets of intersecting lines. Here is one set. Notice that these are also perpendicular lines because they create a right angle at the point where the lines meet. Here are 2 other examples of intersecting lines on the letter E. They are both also perpendicular lines. In today's episode of Math Matters, we learned about parallel, intersecting, and perpendicular lines. Identify different types of lines in the alphabet at home today. I'm Miss Ott. I hope you have a great day and keep on counting.